The Trails in the Sky first chapter demo just dropped, and I've been basically playing it nonstop. I love the original, and it's actually been a really long time since I've played it all the way through, so this was like a really great and beautiful trip down memory lane. In this video, I want to go over 5 new improvements to the original that you might not have noticed at first glance. Sure, it has great new graphics, but there's a lot more here. Trails in the Sky first chapter has always been so special to me. It's not just the first entry in what would become one of the most ambitious jrpg stories ever created. It's a story about starting small in a quiet town with a pair of characters who have no idea just how big the world is going to get around them. And now, with the new remake, Falcom had a choice. They could have gone the easy route, polish up the graphics, throw in some minor improvements, maybe patch in a turbo mode and call it a day, but that's not what they did here. Instead, they went deeper, looking for ways to modernize the experience while still keeping its heart intact. I loved every minute of my time with it so far and can't wait for its full release. So with all that said, let's get into it. When I first booted up this remake, yes, at first glance, there were a few things that hit me. The graphics, the music, all of those were amazing. But the fact that walking out of Estelle's home into the streets didn't trigger like this loading screen, that sounds tiny, almost unworthy of a mention in an era where most games are seamless, but in Trails in the Sky, it makes a massive difference. The original was built on a series of stitched together maps, each with its own little fade to black sequence. Anytime you would walk into a town, enter a new building, head down the road, you'd be watching the screen blink in and out if you were kind of going through it and exploring to your heart's content, which I love to do in these games. The remake smooths all of this out. Areas flow into each other naturally, streets lead to fields, homes lead to back alleys, and roads stretch further than you can ever remember without any interruption. It's a trick to the engine, sure, but it has a ripple effect on how you feel and experience this journey. For me, it changed the way I thought about pacing and how much I wanted to explore. That gentle rhythm of Trails where you kind of leave home, travel to a neighboring town, take on a job, then return, used to feel very segmented. Now it feels super organic. Walking down the road into a new area isn't just entering into another map anymore. It's just continuing. Everything is seamless, and it's not just out of convenience. The absence of constant fades makes this world feel more real, more cohesive. It's a subtle thing, but it makes your brain stop thinking about game maps and just enjoy the experience. And in a series that's all about nations and borders and the histories that tie them all together, that's the right call, and this was a big, amazing move to make for them. Next, we have big evolutions in combat. Now, we all knew this was coming. I love the combat in Daybreak. I played a little bit of Daybreak, even though I'm still making my way through the Cold Steel arc. I still wanted that modern touch of what modern Trails feels like. So I did play the new combat. It feels great, and Sky First Chapter does a great job on innovating on it. The original Sky FC combat was definitely fine. I had no issues with it. I actually really enjoyed a lot of its turn-based elements. It was functional, it was strategic, and if you were really patient, let's be honest, it was actually a ton of fun. But overall, it hasn't aged as gracefully as the series' storytelling. The turn order bar, the court system, the emphasis on arts, that was all really cool and quite innovative for 2004, but nowadays, it can feel a little sluggish compared to a lot of the modern Trails games. The remake fixes that by pulling in mechanics from later games. Like I said, Daybreak, for example, suddenly battles are no longer just about inching forward and waiting for your spells to go off. They're about rhythm, synergy, and timing, jumping in, hitting them a few times, switching to turn-based combat, and popping in and out of that seamlessly. I mean, it's fast-paced, it's rhythmic, it all feels really great. The effect of all of this is huge. Fights that used to drag on now move with great pacing. You're thinking about positioning, timing, and resource management in ways that you weren't really doing in the original game. All of that is amazing, but here's the thing I love most. They didn't throw out the old system entirely. The turn order bar is still there. Arts and crafts still define characters in unique ways. Quartz tinkering still matters. The remake doesn't erase the past, it just layers the future on top of it, if that makes sense. That layering means veterans get to experience combat that feels both nostalgic and really fresh, and newcomers won't bounce off the slower pacing of the original. They'll step right into something that feels just as great and modern as Daybreak, but with Sky's more tactical DNA. It's the best of both worlds in my opinion, a battle system that honors where Trails started, while quietly pulling it into the present. All right, let's talk menus and UI and quality of life improvements. If you know me, you know I love a great UI, great menu systems. I'm a sucker for that stuff. As a Persona fan, as someone who loves Metaphor, Persona 5 for all the great things it does with its UI, I'm always looking for great implementation of these things. Sure, it's not the flashiest thing in a JRPG, but maybe one of the most important. The original Trails in the Sky had menus that were workable. They did their job, but after playing a ton of more modern games, it's hard not to notice how clunky they can feel at times. Navigating court slots, sorting items, even flipping through quest logs, it all had this extra layer of friction to it. The remake smooths all of that out. The UI has been redesigned with modern sensibilities, clearer fonts, faster navigation, more intuitive layouts, shops are easier to parse, equipping courts feels cleaner with visual cues that help you understand what arts you're unlocking. Even the camera feels friendlier, adjusting naturally so you're not fighting the perspective when trying to line up movement. This kind of thing is small and it doesn't grab headlines, but it changes your experience moment to moment. In the original, I sometimes found myself dreading the micromanagement side of things, especially when juggling different party setups, and actually, it's something I enjoy doing now. The most interesting part is how invisible these changes become once you settle in. You don't stop and say, wow, the UI is so much better. Instead, you just play the game without noticing the little frictions that used to weigh it down. That's the hallmark of a good design, and it gets out of the way. It also shows a kind of respect for the player's time. They seem to understand that Trails games are really long, epic, sprawling things that demand dozens of hours. By making these systems smoother, they're not just making the game prettier, they're making sure the journey itself feels less exhausting. And in a series that thrives on its length, that's maybe one of the most important modernizations of all. Here's where the remake makes one of the boldest moves. It gives the entire game full voice acting. Hearing Estelle actually speak her lines, hearing Joshua's tone delivered out loud, or listening to random townsfolk gossip with proper voices, it really transforms the experience. These characters who once existed only in text suddenly have a presence, and because Trails is a series so heavily defined by its characters, that shift landed harder than I ever would have anticipated. But it's not just about adding voices, it's about what they choose to do with the script. The localization is brand new. Instead of simply recycling the translation, the remake has gone back and reworked it. That doesn't mean it's better or worse, it's just different. There are nuances in how characters come across. Some lines hit warmer, others sharper, depending on the intent of the original. As someone who spent hours dissecting all of the dialogue in the original game, this makes the remake feel almost like rediscovering an old book through a new translation. It's been a really long time since I've played the original, so it's hard for me to notice all the little differences out there, but I'm sure there's plenty of you that do notice that. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. Do you like the things that were added in? Do you like the things that were changed? Do you wish they would have just stuck to the 100% original script? I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. Voice acting doesn't just make Trails easier to engage with for newcomers, it also breathes new life into old scenes for veterans. That scene where Estelle tries to get Joshua out of bed lands totally different when you hear the tone, not just read it. For a story this personal, hearing it actually performed makes all the difference in the world. Lastly, I've got expanded story and side content. This, to me, is the real headline. The remake isn't just a facelift. There's a lot that they added here. Falcom has added new quests, expanded character moments, and even fleshed out interactions with people who felt minor before. The effect of this definitely feels noticeable. The original Sky FC already had an unusual sense of community. Every NPC had names, schedules, and evolving dialogue as the story progressed, but now the remake pushes that even further so that revisiting towns and side characters feels even more rewarding. Here's the most eye-opening thing, and one that's kind of had a lot of conversation around it, and one of the developers came out and admitted it took them 80 hours to finish the remake. Compare that to the original, which for me took around 50 hours, and you realize just how much potential new content is actually there. I doubt it's padding. I think it's more like extra layers to the story and interaction. The world is more fleshed out, and I do think that there's going to be a lot more opportunities for exploration in the new remake. For longtime fans, this is a dream. You get to explore familiar locations, but discover new details hidden in the corners. For newcomers, it means their first experience with Trails is even richer than ours was. In my opinion and my experience, Trails has always been about those little moments, the conversations, the errands, the kind of slice of life stuff that the other JRPGs would kind of rush through or just put in there as extra padding. Expanding that part of the game doesn't dilute the story, it actually really deepens it. It makes everything feel more alive, more fleshed out, and it's easier to immerse yourself in this world. And if you know anything about where the Trail series eventually goes, then you know how important it is to feel that every NPC matters. The remake gets that. It makes every corner worth visiting again. So when you stack it all up, seamless exploration, evolved combat, a smoother interface, full voice acting, and tons of expanded content and reason for more exploration, you start to realize that this isn't just a remake, it's kind of a reimagining in a lot of ways, a chance for Trails to reintroduce itself not only to brand new players, but also to fans who experienced the original a long time ago and are really excited to experience it again in a brand new way. Anyway, that's it for me in this one. Let me know in the comments below which of these changes excites you the most. If you're a Trails veteran, if you've made it through the whole series, are you ready to sink another 50, 60, or even 80 hours into Trails in the Sky first chapter? I know personally I am. Let me know, and if you're not subscribed to the channel already, make sure you subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel. I look forward to reading all your comments. Until next time, I'm out.